My bad. What's up? Whoever watching this in the future, whoever watching this, whenever y'all watching it, like I said, this is my new series. I'm really busy be doing like book studies on here. Really, probably like 30 minutes a day. Really. This is the first book I'm reading. Is this? Oh shit. This book, How to Win Friends and Influencing People. And I'm gonna try to get more into like some of these occult books too. I'm gonna do that for sure. A lot of these spiritual books I got because some of them really be good. It's hard to really read them and like stay consistent. Cause the thing about me, I got too much shit to do. I ain't gonna lie. I don't got time to read. I don't got time to really sit down. Sometimes, really, I'm really with the either meditating, practicing. I go to work. Got my side gig stuff, so it's hard for me to even stay consistent like that and just get some new knowledge in. Even though I need new knowledge to even make content. And parts I gotta just be creative to really create content. So, but this is the book I'm gonna read. This is the new series I'm doing. Just a book studying series. Really any book. I'm about to say if y'all really tune into my stuff and really got any books might want me to read, I'll read them. I don't know how long I'm gonna go for this book. I might just go till the introduction is over. Let me see how far it is. I don't know if that's even bad to even read this. Like in my head, like I said, as I got better with like reading and really got intrigued with reading, I always started to read the introductions. But before, I used to hate reading like introductions. Like, man, get to the book, man. Fuck all the other shit, man. Real shit though. No cap. And I don't know if y'all can hear this music, but like I said, I just want to hear this one part off this West Side Gun shit. It be slapping, no cap. So yeah, I'm gonna start from the beginning. If y'all don't know, it's made by Dale Carnegie, and this is just a book. I feel like I had it for a minute. I'm like, dog, I need to read it, and it just helped with me with communication and really getting better with interacting with people and really helping with me with my charisma, right? I think that's really what my goal and intention is with the book is I want to get better with being able to interact with people and being able to persuade people. I don't know, that's just something, it's such like a superpower when you see it like in work. Like some people are so masterful with it and it's, like I said, I get jealous and envious and I wish I can be able to do things like that. So this book, and I'm gonna get, and I think this another like category I am gonna start to do with the book studies is like psychic development or like healer, like go deeper into like the healing books that I see and I read. Well, the books that I do have about like just healings and doing like, you know, energetic healing and things like that, just cause that's something I'm actually trying to do in my outside life. So I think I'm gonna put it in the comments like where the book starts. I'm gonna put it like in the caption or something, just so people don't be wasting their time. But this just me chatting. Came home from work and I'm like, let me do this real quick. I'm gonna try to do them every couple of days out the week, really, just 30 minutes. Really, how much time I can really spare. But like I said, it's time to grind on this YouTube shit for real though. So let me find it. Chapter 1. Or introduction. Wait, let me read this first part and then I'm gonna read the part 1. Fundamentals on handling people. So it said, let me read this straight. It said 9 suggestions to get the most out of this book. If you wish to get the most out of this book, there is one indispensable requirement. One essential and definitely more important than any rule or technique, unless you have this one fundamental requisite. 1,000 rules on how to study with avail little. And if you have this cardinal endowment, then you can achieve wonders without reading any suggestions for most of the book. What is the magic requirement? Just this: a deep drive and desire to learn, a vigorous determination to increase your ability to deal with people. How can you develop such an urge? By constantly reminding yourself how important these principles are to you. Picture yourself how their mastery will aid you and leading you a richer, fuller, happier, more fulfilling life. Say to yourself over and over again, my popularity, my happiness, my sense of worth depend on no small amount extent upon my skill in dealing with people. Read each chapter rapidly at first to get the bird's eye view of it. You will probably be tempted to rush on to the next one, but don't, unless you are reading merely for entertainment. If you are reading because you want to increase your skill in human relations, then go back and reread each chapter thoroughly. In the long run, you will be saving time and getting results. Stop frequently in your reading to think over what you're reading. Ask yourself how and when you can apply each suggestion. Read with a crayon, pencil, pen, magic marker, highlighter in your hand. When you come across suggestions that you feel you can use, draw a line beside it. It is a 4-star suggestion, then underscore every sentence and highlight it or mark it with ... Marking or underscoring the book make it more interesting and far easier to rapidly review. And 5, I knew a woman who had been an office manager for a large insurance concern for 15 years. Every month she reads all the insurance contracts her company issued that month. And guess she reads many of the same contracts over after month, after year. Why? Because the experience that taught her that the only way she can keep her provisions clearly in mind. I spent almost 2 years writing a book on public speaking, yet I found that I keep going back over it from time to time in order to remember what I written in my own book. The rapidity with which we forget is astonishing. So if you want to get real, lasting benefits out of this book, don't imagine skimming through it once will suffice. After reading thoroughly, you will also spend a few hours reviewing it every month. Keep it on your desk in front of you every day. Glance through it often. Keep constantly impressing yourself with such rich possibilities for improvement that still lie in the offing. Remember that the use of the principles can be made habitual only by constant, vigorous campaign of review and application. There is no other way. 6. Bernard Shaw once remarked, if you teach a man anything, he will never learn. Shaw was right. Learning is an active process. We learn by doing. So if you desire to master the principles you are studying in this book, you must do something about them. Apply them rules at every opportunity. If you don't, you forget them quickly. Only knowledge that is used sticks in your mind. You will probably find it difficult to apply these suggestions all the time. I know, because I wrote the book, yet frequently I found it difficult to apply everything I advocated. For example, when you are displeased, it's much easier to criticize and condemn than it is to try and understand the other person's viewpoint. It is frequently easier to find fault than to find praise. It is more natural to talk about what you want than to talk about it what the other person wants, and so on. So as you read this book, remember that you're not merely trying to acquire information, you are attempting to form a new habit. Yes, you are attempting a new way of life. The way that will require time and persistence in daily application. So I refer to these pages often, regard this as a working handbook on human relations. Whenever you're confronted with some specific problems, such as handling a child, winning your spouse through your way of thinking, satisfying an irritated customer, hesitate about doing the natural thing, the impulsive thing, this is usually wrong. Instead, turn to the pages and review the paragraphs you underscored. Then try these ways and watch them achieve magic for you. Offer your spouse, your child, or some business associate a dime or a dollar every time she catches you violating a certain principle. Make a lively game out of mastering these rules. That's funny. I might start doing that. The president of an important Wall Street bank once described in a talk before one of my classes a highly efficient system he used for self-improvement. This man had little formal schooling, and yet he had become one of the most important financiers in America. And he confessed that he owed most of his success to the constant application of his homemade system. This is what he does. I'll put it in his own words as accurately I can remember. For years, I kept an engagement book showing all the appointments I had during the day. My family never made any plans for me on Saturday night. For the family knew that I devoted a part of each Saturday evening on illuminating the processes of self-examination and appraisal. After dinner, I went up by myself, opened my engagement book, and thought over all interviews, discussions, meetings that had taken place during the week. I asked myself, what mistake did I make that time? What did I do that was right? What could I improve my performance? What lessons can I learn from the experience? Often I found that this weekly review made me very unhappy. I was frequently astonished at my own blunders. And of course, as the years passed, these blunders became less frequent. Sometimes I was inclined to pat myself on the back a little after one of those sessions. This system of self analysis, self education, continued year after year, did more for me than any other thing I have ever attempted. It helped me improve my ability to make decisions. It aided me enormously in my contacts with people. I cannot recommend it too highly. Why not use a similar system to check up on your application of principles discussed in the book? If you do, two things will result. You'll find yourself engaged in educational processes that are both intriguing and priceless. Secondly, you will find yourself engaged in you find your ability to meet and deal with people grow enormously. 9. You will find at the end of this book several blank pages on which you should recover your triumphs into application. Be specific, give name, give dates, results. Keeping such a record will inspire you to greater efforts. And how fascinating these entries will be when you chance upon them some evening years from now. In order to get the most out of this book, develop a deep driving desire to master. Read each chapter twice. As you read, start frequently to ask yourself, how can you apply each suggestion? Review this book each month. Apply these principles at every opportunity. Make a game out of learning these principles and using these principles. Check up each week. And then keep notes in the back of this book showing how you apply these applications. Now it is part 1, fundamentals, techniques, and handling people. Now let me see how long this chapter is, I ain't gonna lie. 16 pages. I can get through this shit. I ain't gonna lie, I've been talking all day. I really don't feel like reading the book, but I am gonna read the book though. Principle 1. If you want to gather honey, don't cook over the beehive. I guess the first principle is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. And I think if I'm being honest, I use that principle because I got it from another book. I got it from The Laws of Mental Domination, right? And if you're trying to dominate anybody, at least verbally, you should never use any type of negative connotation or anything negative. You should always steer clear from. You should always lean more towards praising people and uplifting people. I was about to say, you could be not taking somebody out their money, but you could be swindling people out their money. But like I said, if you're making them feel good, they'll do it willingly. Like I said, it's more like the idea about people don't buy the product, they buy the person. So if you know how to sell things very good, if you're a very charismatic person, you can really convince people to, you convince and you persuade people to your way of thinking, and it's very subtle. Like I said, it's not really abrasive. Like if you go, like if somebody like you, they'll buy something in a second, especially if it's cheap too. Like I said, they'll spend their money, and they do, and they'll follow your way of thinking. And like I said, I noticed this at work. I noticed it with, I even noticed that on my end of being a customer. When people were nicer to me, I was more willing to even just spend the extra dollar, let's say, to donate some money or something. But chapter 1, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over a beehive. On May 7th, my mouth hurting too. On May 7th, 1931, the most sensational manhunt New York City had ever known have come to the climax. After 2 weeks of search, Crowley, the killer, the gunman who didn't smoke or drink, was at bay, trapped in his sweetheart's apartment on West End Avenue. 150 policemen and detectives laid siege to his top floor hideaway. They chopped holes in the roof and they tried to smoke out Crowley, the cop killer, with tear gas. Then they mounted their machine guns on surrounding buildings, and for more than 1 hour of New York's fine residential areas reverberated with the crack of pistol fire and rat-tat-tat-tat of machine guns. Crowley, crouching behind an overstuffed chair, fired insistently at the police 10,000 excited people watched the battle. Nothing like it had ever been seen before on the sidewalks of New York. When Crowley was captured, the police commissioner, E.P. Mulrooney, declared the two-gun desperado was one of the most dangerous criminals ever encountered in the history of New York. He will kill, said the commissioner, at the drop of a feather. How did the two-gun Crowley regard himself? We know because while the police were firing to the apartment, he wrote a letter addressed to whom it may concern. As he wrote, the blood flowing from his wound left a crimson trail on the paper. And in this letter, Crowley said, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." A short time before this, Crowley had been given a necking party with his girl on the country road on Long Island. Suddenly, a policeman walked up to his car and said, "Let me see your license." Without saying a word, Crowley drew his gun and cut the police down with the sour lid. As the dying officer fell, Crowley leaped out the car and grabbed the officer's revolver and fired another bullet into the prostrate's body. And that was the one killer who said, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would not do any harm." Crowley was sentenced to the electric chair. When he arrived at the death house in Sing Sing, did he say, "This is what I get for killing people"? No. He said, "This is what I get for defending myself." The point of the story is that the two-gun Crowley didn't blame himself for anything. It is that an unusual attitude amongst criminals. If you think so, listen to this. I have spent the best years of my life giving people the lighter pleasures, helping them have a good time, and all I get is abuse and the existence of a honey man. That's Al Capone speaking. Yes, America's most notorious public enemy, the most sinister gang leader who shot up Chicago. Capone didn't condemn himself. He actually regarded himself as a public benefactor, an unappreciated, misunderstood public benefactor. So did Dutch Schultz before he would crumple under gangsters' bullets in Newark. Dutch Schultz, one of New York's most notorious rats, said in a newspaper interview that he was a public benefactor, and he believed it. He had some interesting correspondence with Louis Laws, who was the warden of the New York infamous Sing Sing prison for many years on this subject. He declared that the few of the criminals in Sing Sing regard themselves as bad men. They're just as human as you and I. So they rationalize and they explain. They can tell you that why they had to crack a safe or be quick on the trigger finger. Most of them attempt by a form of reasoning fallacious or logical to justify their antisocial acts, even to themselves, consequently stouting, maintaining that they should never have been in prison at all. If Al Capone, two-gun Crowley, Dutch Schultz, and the desperate men and women beyond walls don't blame themselves for anything, what about the people with whom you and I come into contact with? John Wanamaker, founder of the stores that bear his name, once confessed, "I learned 30 years ago that it is foolish to scold. I have enough trouble overcoming my own limitations without fretting over the fact that God has not seen fit to distribute even the gift of intelligence." Wanamaker learned this lesson early, but personally had to blunder through this old world for a third of a century before it even began to dawn upon me that 99 times out of the 100, people who don't criticize themselves for anything, no matter how wrong it may be. Criticism is futile because it puts a person on the defensive and usually makes him strive to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride, hurts his sense of importance, and arousement of resentment. Oh man, I just started dozing off. Not dozing off, but I just, the little PTSD stares when you start looking off and just thinking about things. No matter how wrong it may be. Criticism is futile because it puts a person on the defensive, usually makes him strive to justify himself. Criticism is dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride, hurts his sense of importance, and arouses resentment. B.F. Skinner, the world famous psychologist, proved through his experiments that an animal rewarded for good behavior will learn much more rapidly and retain what it learns from far more effectively than an animal punished for bad behavior. Later studies have shown that the same applies to humans. By criticizing, we do not make lasting changes and often incur resentment. Hans Sile, Seeley, often another greatest psychologist, said, as much as we thirst for approval, we dread condemnation. The resentment that criticism engenders can demoralize employees, family members, friends, and still not correct the situation that may has been condemned. George B. Johnson of Enid, Oklahoma, is a safety coordinator for an engineering company. One of his responsibilities is to see that the employees wear their hard hats whenever they are on the job field. He reported that whenever he came across workers who did not wear hard hats, he would tell them with a lot of authority of the regulations they must comply. As a result, he would get sullen acceptance. Often he left and the workers would remove the hats. He decided to try a different approach. Next time he found some of the workers not wearing their hard hat, he asked if the hats were uncomfortable and did not fit properly. Then he reminded the men in a pleasant tone that the hat was designed to protect from injury and suggested that it would be worn on the job. The result was increased compliance with the regulation with no resentment or emotional upset. You will find examples of futility of criticism bristling on 1,000 pages of history. Take, for example, the famous quarrel between Theodore Roosevelt and President Taft, a quarrel that split the Republican Party and put Woodrow Wilson in the White House, and wrote bold, luminous lines across the First World War and altered the flow of history. Let's review the facts quickly. When Theodore Roosevelt stepped out the White House in 1908, supported Taft, who was the president. Then Theodore went off to Africa to shoot lions. When he returned, he exploded. He had denounced Taft for his conservatism, tried to secure the nomination for the third term himself, formed a Bull Moose Party, and all but demolished the GOP. And the election that followed, William Howard Taft and the Republican Party carried only 2 states, Vermont and Utah. The most disastrous defeat the party have ever known. Theodore Roosevelt blamed Taft, but did Taft blame himself? Of course not. With his tears, Taft said, "I don't see how I could have done any difference from what I have." Who was to blame? Roosevelt, Taft? Frankly, I don't know. I do not care. The point I am trying to make is that all the Theodore Roosevelt criticism didn't persuade Taft that he was wrong. It merely made Taft strive to justify himself and reiterate with the tears in his eyes, "I don't see how I could have done any difference from what I have done." Or take the Teapot Dome oil scandal. It kept the newspaper ringing with the indignation in the early 1920s. It rocked the nation. Within the memory of the living man, nothing like it have ever happened before in American public life. Here are the bare facts of the scandal. Albert B. Fall, Secretary of the Interior, Harding's cabinet, was entrusted with the leasing Interior Harding's cabinet was entrusted with the leasing of the government oil reserves at Elk Hill, the Teapot Dome oil reserve that it had to set aside for the future use of the Navy. Did Secretary Fall permit competitive bidding? No, sir. He handed the fat, juicy contract outright to his friend Edward L. Doheny. And what did Doheny do? He gave Secretary Fall what he pleased to call a loan, one of $100,000. Then, in a high-handed manner, Secretary Fall ordered the United States Marines into the district to drive off the competitors whose adjacent wells were sapping oil out of the Elk Hill reserves, and these competitors driven off their grounds at the guns and the bayonets. Rushing to court, blew the lid off the teapot scandal, an extent to roll so vile that it ruined the Harding administration, nauseated an entire nation, threatened to wreck the Republican Party, and put Albert B. Fall behind those bars. So really, I'm not even about to finish reading it. I'm finished reading, but it just seemed like it's just examples after examples. I don't want to keep reading. I'm not about to just read just to be reading examples. And I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm about to read this last part, then I'm done with this chapter because it's just examples. I'm about to say, and I get people need examples, but realistically, it's real life examples that you can use. And let's be honest, I'm about to say most people don't like being thrown under the bus. Let's say if you make a mistake, right? People make mistakes. I think that's one thing you must understand is people, you're gonna make a mistake somewhere. And the last thing people ever want to be done is thrown under the bus or just made to seem like you are incompetent. And it's been many times I've been at work and I'm about to say, when you I noticed it with my managers, or even when I was a manager at work, when people would make mistakes, I tell them, like I said, I always already been practicing this type of principle before. I was always practicing it just because, for one, you just want to. I always been working on my charisma and just being a good person, so you don't ever want to make somebody feel like they are incompetent or just less than. And so you say things that may boost how they feel about themselves at the moment. You overall just speaking very positive. I mean, I'm gonna go deeper probably in the chapter, but maybe that's my own separate video I might have to do on these. Just really going in deep on dealing with people. And of course, I think that reading this book is really gonna help me with speaking more clear and more precise and more having more purpose behind my speech. But that's why I want to read this book. But I always had a good mouth when it came to not throwing people under the bus in the sense of if I'm dealing with customers or dealing with people that got good relations with, I try not to throw them under the bus. And like I said, if I can give them out, if I can give somebody an out, more than likely I'm going to give them an out. That's just who I am. I like I said, I think, and even in my own mind, I believe I can take on a lot of bullshit. So I do. Not saying I should, but I just take on a lot of people's bullshit just because I believe that I can handle it. So let me just finish this last part. Then, like I said, that's it for today's book study. Thank you all for coming. But the last part. Instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. A lot of more profitable, intriguing than criticism. It breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. That is a bar. I like that one. To know all is to forgive all. To know all is to forgive all. That is hard. I'm not even gonna lie. That's hard. I like that. I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna write that down somewhere. To know all is to forgive all. To know all is to forgive all. To know all is to forgive all. That's hard. And as Dr. Johnson said, God himself, sir, does not propose to judge a man to the end of his days. Why should I? That's real, though. That's real. I ain't gonna lie, I like that. I'm glad I even seen that part. But if y'all like the video, if y'all like this, I ain't gonna lie, it got a lot of bars in here though. Like I'm gonna go through it. I might go through like on the actual video and really go through like the notes from it, of like summarizing it and really getting like the main points and extracting the main points. But this is hard, like no cap. So yeah, if y'all like this, and y'all really want to stay tuned in for this new series I'm doing, show some love. Like I said, it's always gonna be here. So thank y'all. I appreciate y'all, and y'all have a good day. Thank you.